Live.
All right. What episode number is this? You've been doing this a while now.
Live. And as far as the episode number, I'm not really sure. I just think we're getting better at what we're doing, and that's no. I'll go back and look at that. We might be in somewhere in the tens to twenties, and I've got a number of episodes that I just release when it feels like the right time to release that episode. Um, we are live currently, on YouTube, and we have a link here if we want to share that out with anyone. And I'd appreciate it if people can offer a good friend of a friend, Tim Roberts, and now we have Joseph Darnell on with us today. And I would love to hear people's feedback, or I think it could be a big benefit to anybody in our Discord community. So I'll share that out there. And yeah, we are always excited for feedback on how people can move forward. So, this is our Finding Beautiful Questions community podcast, who we really owe a lot of favors to other people in our community that have helped support this. And we're always interested in helping promote what they're doing and why they're doing it. And when we think about it, Joseph, and I sent you some of the pre-material. I hope you enjoyed that, but we really think about this in the sense of why people get out of bed as a question. And that question sort of drives them in the sense of why do you do what you do? And I'm really excited to hear why you're doing what you're doing and what you're all about. However, before we get into that, because it's going to be amazing for people to hear, we have some, pre-notes on, from Joseph's own words that people can see here on the screen. And um, this is what we were talking about before the stream to bring people in on the podcast. If you want to see this, you can check us out on YouTube under Bluprnt. And really, when we started talking about the value and use that a beautiful question or a reason to get out of bed can bring to other people, that's pretty amazing when it comes down to his work for authors and applications that people can very tangibly see in a book cover or reaching an audience for a series, and to really convey that in an unbiased manner that portrays the intentions of the person who's almost the inventor, or that's their child, that they're trying to see have an impact in the world. It really resonated with me and with the Bluprnt community, because we try to be a launch pad for people's dreams, and it's their intentions that we're promoting in the world. So thank you, Joseph, for joining us. What do you want to add to that already? I feel an already impressive introduction, to be honest.
That was really gracious, and thank you, Bryant. That's a good way to start. I've been a creative professional for over 15 years. I started with a family-run video production business here in the Metro Atlanta area. We are homeschool graduates, my brother, my younger sister, my younger brother, and I. And our parents went to Liberty University when they first started in the late 70s and beginning of the early 80s. Then they were married and moved to Georgia. And in Georgia, my dad was a teacher. My mom was too. And when the time came to start educating me in first grade, they said, you know what? We really enjoyed private school teaching, but we really want to grow a family business as well as teach our children full-time at home. So we started full-time education at home. And then my dad bought a janitorial business and started running that business here in the Metro Atlanta area. So my siblings and I grew up with our dad, working with him on the side after school hours or on weekends because we wanted to, and he could afford to let one of us tag along with him. So we got an early taste in business and a good work ethic, and eventually became his part-time employees throughout high school. But beyond the janitorial business, we all had this creative itch, and a lot of Darnells in the family tree are creative professionals. So
Got the edge. You got the
we
edge.
we bought our dad camera equipment for his birthday one year, thinking, "Dad, come on, you don't know what this could lead to. You might be able to make something professionally someday. Wouldn't that be interesting?" And then our dad bought us a family Mac computer, saying, "Hey, guys, y'all want to take this and run with it and make something of it creatively, professionally? You never know what it might become." So he gave us the editing tools, and we gave him the front, production tools. And then we ended up doing several video productions here for nonprofit organizations, for state legislators, for various Christian ministries. Then in the midst of doing video production, you can't make a good video without also learning a few tricks of graphic design. So I had an early copy of Photoshop and started using that in the 90s. And I had a blast making up my own business cards and trifold brochures, and sharing them with friends. And then I would, how some people were playing sports, I was asking friends for ideas for what I could create in Photoshop next. So I would take pictures of my friends and make like what looked like movie montage posters with them, and create something new that looked like it was actually a film or something. We would spoof Lord of the Rings at the time, and I would make movie posters out of my friends that resembled the Lord of the Rings posters. So after high school, I started working professionally for a nonprofit organization here in the Metro Atlanta area. We were doing a talk radio show, and I was the call taker, and we had many callers, and I was getting their information down so that the host could see that in the live show. And then I was doing graphic design for this organization as well, and eventually took in charge of their video department and started leading a team, and did that for several years. Started in 2007, and eventually I moved on to a for-profit company that was in marketing, and made the bulk of their revenue from original content on their own websites. But they had new creative writers all the time with their own special audiences, and some of them were well-known popular websites that wanted to grow. And so this company would help their marketing strategies and redesign their websites and increase their SEO when this was a newer idea, when this was early in the days of the SEO craze that has swept through the internet. Then they needed creative professionals to also help spruce up everybody's websites. And I became their creative director for a year and enjoyed that process. And then I wanted to shift so that I could help more specifically, not just create more media, which I had done for 8 years. I wanted to work with a tangible goods company. And I had the opportunity to work with a craft coffee making company here in the Atlanta area. So I left the creative director job so that I could become the creative force for this new craft coffee business. Helped them start their websites, their brand, their marketing materials, their what do we call it? Their sort of the creative experience with the business and their identity, corporate identity. And then beyond that, I became a full time creative consultant, did that for a few years. And then I went back into video production after a few years of strictly graphic design and web development. And I've been doing video production now for 4.5 years. Really enjoy it. And in the last 4 years, a lot of it has moved to streaming and podcasting and YouTube content. But along the way, I've helped for this Christian ministry I work full time for here in the metro Atlanta area today. I helped them with a theatrical release of a documentary about UFOs and aliens. And I've helped them start many other video productions for YouTube and their website creation.com. And besides all this, some of my personal interests, my passion projects on the side, I've made podcasts about uh, sort of craft coffee culture, movie review podcast, technology podcasts, and that brings us up to the present.
So that is something that I am going to go over here and we'll bring it up and try something new with that we haven't done before, with going through and discussing like, well, what are we going through with Joseph here? So I really love it how you talked about your parents in the 70s and 80s moving down, and they moved to Georgia and they realized they want to do homeschooling. And you talked about the idea of someone is has a perspective that I believe you were talking about a great perspective on the ethics of work when they work with your dad. And I was going to ask you here, what's a good janitorial joke? You know, a good one?
A good clean joke.
Yeah,
Well,
good
there's
clean joke. Hey, there we go.
well, that's the joke.
A good clean joke. That's hilarious, actually. So Bluprnt is going to come right in with you and say, you know, the only reason we left the U in because it doesn't work without you.
Right.
It's just the hilarity of what we're doing sometimes gets us through some pretty, let's call it, crappy situations.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So when you talk about the idea of a janitor, what does that mean to you, almost metaphorically? Because if you've been on my LinkedIn, I'm really curious. I give myself the title of the janitor. So what does that mean to you?
The janitorial cleaning is the kind of person who's custodian of the an event environment. So, as a janitorial business, it's your job to continue to maintain the atmosphere of a business or of a nonprofit organization. So we were cleaning tire stores, hair salons, your regular everyday doctor's offices, churches, and schools. And the work of a janitor is invisible. So nobody ought to notice that the janitor did his job. And no one should especially ever notice that the janitor didn't do his job. So the worst case scenario is that you were found to have left something disgusting in the business environment that doesn't suit the purpose of the business as a whole. And for example, this happened one time that there was a church and we were cleaning them from week to week, and we knew about their special events and activities from week to week. And there was this one time that they had a week long conference at the church, but they had activities during the afternoon and the evening. So it was very difficult for a family run business with a crew of about four working at the church at the time to make sure that everything is spotless. And after we had made the place spotless one evening in the middle of the week, then following day, a child had thrown up in one of the rooms that the event was being held in. But the events keep on going on all day long, and a janitor can't come in and make sure everything is pristine for the next event going on in the same space. And unfortunately, many people go into the room and find the place unclean. And then everybody asks, where's the janitor and why isn't he doing his job? And it was impossible to be in there at that time. But 99% of the time, that doesn't happen. As long as a janitor is there from week to week, after hours, they get the job done and a company just looks the way it ought to be. So the creative work of the janitorial and maintenance that comes with it is just making sure that no one knows that the place was dirty to begin with. And that is it is a job that you don't want to call attention to, and you don't want anyone to catch the work left undone.
That's really nice, actually. I'm reminded of Martin Luther King, where he said, if your role is not, or your destiny is not to be the big timber on the hill, then be the best little shrub in the valley that you can. And if it is your destiny to sweep streets, then sweep streets like Michelangelo painted.
That's a great way to put it.
Whoa. Yeah, I'm getting the goosebumps just, like even thinking about that, man. So thank you for laying that out. And so we jump into like what do you because we're talking about like how now, right? We've gotten a great view of what to bring us a little bit into the space of the podcast. And so we're now talking about how, right? We're moving from what to how we've done things. And it sounds like values, right? We talk about a value right here. Oh, that's a W right there. W's and V's, they get mixed up sometimes. Um, ethic of work, right? So, what are some of the other values that you think have propelled you to serve clients in the way that, I've started highlighting out here when we were talking about,
Mm.
the different things you've done? Oh, we don't want to get rid of that. We wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, going back to the beginning, I think that the best principle, the life lesson that was deeply felt and powerful about working in the family janitorial business was learning the value of being thorough, knowing that if you didn't check that room today is going to be the day that that room was trashed. And, you know, 100 other times you were going through the office, you'd find that that space was always clean. You had to just always check to find that one example of something unexpectedly dirty. So it's not the most complex and sophisticated idea, but when you're cleaning dozens and dozens of business venues and the like every week in and week out, you just want to make sure, was this done today? Was this done this week? Did we check everything? So you learn the value of a good checklist and a habit of checking everything as you go.
And a good joke, it sounds like.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun, right? And especially when you're when you think about it, there is a mutual inextricable fabric that we exist in life, and in this social contract together. And it's really cool to see someone, again, to lean on Martin Luther King to sort of end that quote. I think it ended on, and on that person's stone says, and they swept streets like Michelangelo painted every day. Right? That's, regardless of what that is, I'm getting the chills again, just thinking about that. So it doesn't matter. If I may make a proposal here, learning with each other is sort of the focus here. If I make a proposal, how does this feel, that um, to live to your potential sounds almost like a very ethical life?
Absolutely. There's a lot of character that you need in the workplace, and it doesn't matter your job. If I had another career path I could have chosen from an early age up to the present, I would have loved to have gone into productivity consulting, would have loved to help businesses become more efficient. But I would also enjoyed helping not businesses to get started, but to become better at what they do. And I think that at some point, it requires a whole lot more character than just perseverance and hustle and passion. Like, passion is something that, when we read the productivity books, they inspire us. And when we take the business seminar, we're excited to do the job. And inspiration is really important. But beyond that, you have to understand that in the daily grind, that it's not going to be exciting to clean the today. It's not going to be exciting to continue to run this family business. There's going to be hundreds of days when the work is mundane, and it's not just something that the janitor experiences. But as a creative professional for over 15 years, there's many circumstances where what I'm doing is so mundane to me now, but it's super important. It's part of the job.
Mm,
And the creative professional has to continue to take advantage of making good use of all of his skills, even when he's used them thousands of times and it's no longer interesting to explore. It seems like a lot of creative professionals were teenagers that wanted to do something exciting and expressive. So they went into creative pursuits. But when the inspiration is gone, they are not excited to continue to do the work. And there's a good book called The War of Art, and it's written by a creative professional that wanted to inspire creative professionals to just do the work when you're no longer inspired. It's important to do it when you feel like you have the the writer's block, when you don't know what else to write today. And so going back to where we left off with the janitorial and what you do from moment to moment, the character that is required. I think that that was something that, being raised in a homeschooled family environment and working with the family business from early on, and learning from a man who enjoyed teaching, and that was his passion. His passion wasn't the janitorial business. My dad loved to teach, and he appreciated the value of showing me and my siblings the character you need to run a business, grow the business, and to stay motivated even when you're doing some of the dirty work.
yeah, because what gets you through Discord is a fantastic community. Thanks you for joining in and always being a part of my life, guys. But I'm busy with Joe right now, so if you're watching in, I will be with you guys in a few minutes here. So Joseph, to really respond to that, yes, hills and valleys, and we can relate this back to relationships. We can relate this back to how considerate are you being in the moment now of how that impacts your future journey. And a lot of people, funny enough, struggle with the idea of impact because it is almost very intangible, and there's a lot that could happen. However, if you've got something going for you now and you can keep working that and you can keep improving that, that's great, because better, again, another proposal here of learning with a theme that anybody can expect in these kinds of conversations, a very objective space with active listening and tools to help us see the same thing and learn with each other is someone shared a story with me once. They said in the game Pokemon, there's 5 trainers on a bridge. And once you go through all the trainers and win your battles succinctly, they say, I did my best today and I'll do better tomorrow. And that's
Yes, yeah.
of what I'm hearing from you, if that feels
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Because every day you got to approach it like there's something new you can learn. And that was something that a teacher raising his children and bringing them into the fold of the family business and teaching us a good work ethic was teaching us to apply to every area of life. That when you're done with your high school education, if you go on to college, my brother went on to get a law degree. Whatever you're doing the rest of your life, you want to keep learning, because that is going to make a huge difference to everything you do for the rest of your life. You will settle and grow stale, and you will recede into the background and be ineffective unless you're learning continuously the rest of your life. So you have to be self-motivated to get to learn in whatever you're trying to expand on, whatever you're trying to grow and foster. There's a great motivational speaker who said the 2 most impactful things in life are the people you meet and the books you read. And so you have to think about that beyond your formal education. how are you going to continue to learn and grow for your profession, and not just for your, you know, self gratification, but the impact and change you can make in the world. So may I run through? I have a list here, Bryant. I wanted to throw these ideas out at you
Oh, yeah.
concerning lessons that were valuable to me.
Of how right now. We're getting like we're about there, and then we're gonna bring it into this beautiful why question in just a moment. Yeah, so hit me with this list.
Yeah, so life lessons that were mission critical to bring me to where I am today, character building blocks for a good work ethic. We had at the very beginning, thoroughness. Well, you know what that is. We've already been there. And then a lot of my professional, creative professional expertise started to come out of intentionality.
Mm,
So at the beginning, what differentiated you as a creative professional from all the others? Well, I chose blue. I used these fonts. I want the materials to feel this way. I want it to have this piece of music because with intentionality, I know I'm trying to convey this message for a high impact and give it enough personality, give it enough uniqueness that people remember this book cover. They remember this radio show. They remember this script. And so with intentionality, you are being very distinct. I've noticed a trick that some professional artists and designers use. And it's, Bryant, you may have never heard this idea.
trick. What's this trick?
Do something intentionally wrong with what you're designing. Do something a little bit off-putting that breaks the rules. Do something that is not right in its execution. So there's lots and lots of rules for photography, for good filmmaking, for a good product of any kind. Well, if you want to make it stand out, you've got to break a rule or two along the way, but you
Hmm.
got to be very intentional about doing a design that is oddly different from the norm in a very specific way while abiding by all the other good standards and tried and true formulas and principles of design. But in one way, you're going to make it quirky. And that quirk about your product, your design, your creative execution is memorable and sticks in people's mind so that they go, oh, that's the one that used purple. Nobody else is using purple in this particular industry. You know, no one else is using video at this time. You know, no one else is offering this kind of customer service with a particular unique quirk about it. And it's almost like it's a mistake, but no, it's very intentional. You did that so that you stand out.
Sorry, I'm laughing because may I share something from the community to parallel with you?
Please do.
We leave typos on the website.
That's a great idea.
I can't tell you what kind of self-filtering effect it has. It's just it's fantastic. It's man, that and then people will come in and point them out to me, and I know I've got generally, I really appreciate the feedback too. So don't worry, guys. We take every call, but I know that I've got somebody that really cares about those things, and it helps me really appreciate them and say, all right, well, this person's more of a they hold a red pen in their hand, and it helps
Right,
us understand our audience a lot better. And even with like, you could take this even further and make a bunch of mistakes with A/B testing all at the same time,
right.
like what you're talking about in the path that I've seen that you've gone down. So yeah, this is really fun to think about. Like, how can people? There was a letter to Ava Van Hess from a friend that Jonathan Cumberbatch did at a presentation recently. I can send it to you and try to provide it to the audience. But it was like, just try. He said the author said, just try to do something bad, anything bad,
Yeah,
please. Make more of this, more of this, more of that. Just do something bad, whatever that is. And I was really impressed by by the parallels that you're drawing here, because this comes from some of the great artists and people that struggle with perfection, it sounds like, and it
Yes.
sounds like the big thing in the creative community. Okay, good. So yeah, what would you say to someone who's struggling with perfection?
The goal is to create, and you got to share it with the world. You got to let go of your ego. You don't have to let go of perfection while letting go of your ego, because you got to let go of the ego and to get things out, so that you will share. You know, you it is better to serve than to rule the roost, to control the power, to the playing field, and be the guy who's the thought leader that tells everybody else how to live their lives. I would rather be the sharer that is serving everyone and to enable them in how they live their lives and how they run their business. So you can do that more perfectly out of love and generosity than you can out of the motivations to control and to drive force that people will live the lives and run the business and buy the product just the way you intend to, the way you want to make them. But for perfection, though, it is more beautiful, it is more meaningful to perfect service. And so I think that that is one of the motivations behind a lot of leaders in business that are, also thought leaders. They will promote the idea that it is better to serve as a leader than to just lead as a thought. As a leader, you want to serve up people ideas. You want to serve people direction. You want to serve your staff. You want to serve your business. And so for the perfectionist, the struggling artist, that guy who's got to have it just right before the world looks at it because it reflects on them. Best advice I can say, guys, is you got to let go. There's there is a lot of beautiful art that is flawed. And there's every human being is flawed. So get comfortable with that. It's all right. No human being is perfect. No company is perfect and no product is perfect. The better thing to do is to share and to serve it out there. So if you can give it your best and get it out every day, you will get better. You were talking about writing for the website. A personal challenge I started this year, Bryant, was at the beginning of the year a personal goal to improve in my professional work. I started practicing typing again because I want to type with better accuracy, avoid more typos, and I want to type faster so that I can write more. I had a website for several years and I hadn't written for it in several years since then, but I want to get it going again. So as I was thinking about that, I want to put out more than I have ever done before. So I got to put out articles. I got to put out new posts before they're even perfect. But along the way, I can help hone my craft by just going back to schooling myself in good typing and fast typing. So I gotta release my website now before I arrive there where there's going to be no typos. But I'm going to further my craft by honing my skill and putting things out the door today.
How do you feel about this statement, the idea of truth enough?
Yeah, yeah. Were you true? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great idea for artists that we care about our authenticity as creators. We don't really want people to notice the creator behind the created. We want them to relish and enjoy the created thing, but we want it to also be true to our who we are. We don't want anything awry with what we have created. We want it to be a positive representation of ourselves. And so it is easy for a designer to understand, what am I creating? Is it true? And that's describing ourselves and the creator behind it. I feel that a lot.
I am so excited because I think we've gotten there, Joseph. I think we're at the beautiful question. So What do you feel we've discovered here? What question do you think we've discovered here?
Oh, the question that I ask myself as a creative every day is, who am I?
Okay,
and
that's amazing. All right, yes, yes, and yes. Wow. And what else?
and who am I serving? How am I serving? That is the deep question that I ask myself every day when I'm motivated to get back at the desk and continue producing more and get it out the door. It's not about the target audience alone. It is how how are we making the world a more beautiful, beneficial place to everybody we serve? And how do we let them know that we're on their side? And how do we give them what they need, what we know that they need?
Oh, seriously, dude, high five. Like, boom. Yeah, that's awesome. I must parallel one with you and toss it out and say, why why does everyone want to be loved and fewer still want to be seen?
Yeah. Well, are you thinking that second question is tied to their ego and their perfectionism?
Do I feel as though that is tied to ego and perfectionism? Do I feel as though what we do in the world is an expression of why we arrive to that? I think the two are mutually inextricable, right? That's great. And I think I found I feel and think that I've found a lot of solace in the duality of those two. It feels like why is one side and what is the other, and how I get between them is how.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so I also feel and think that, and then the splits of our brain and how we feel and think about things, but our limbic side doesn't have the capacity for language, and our neocortex is all about control and perfectionism. So I feel like it's balance that really sets someone to be able to flourish. And you might have thought I was
Hmm.
going to say free. However, free implies a cage. So,
Right.
yeah, there is a beautiful unraveling of why are you good enough?
Mm. On that note, while we were dabbling with this idea of perfectionism getting in the way of our creative work, I think the way to convince a lot of creative professionals to avoid perfectionism because it's so insidious is to teach them the value of improvisation. Because if you're seeking the perfect, then you'll never be effective at improvising. And you look at a lot of the best creative design and filmmaking today and music, and a lot of it is improvised. A podcast is improvised. We're not entirely sure. We have these outlines that we prepare for a show so that we know that we can provide some value. But then a lot of this is ebbing and flowing organically like a good
Dude,
conversation should.
so we had our format of start with the question up here and then talk about that, but we've completely flipped it. And then I realized that I should only take notes up to about how, right? And then we're just like from how to why, and that's that deep relational. And it's, oh man, this has been probably one of the best flowed podcasts that I've ever done up to this point in time. And that doesn't talk about the quality of the experience with others. It just says we're getting better. And you didn't say the best way to do it. I want to really give you some props. You naturally said better. And I really picked up on that. And so it's just an absolute treat here in our last couple of minutes to
Mm.
really talk about what your these beautiful questions that we've laid out here that you get out of bed with, you wonder about these things, and they almost become, imagine that sort of like the field of research that
Right.
you aim your life as an answer or an attempt to better understand that question. Like, whoa. So, man, like you're working with
Mm.
what these days to like where does all this awesomeness go these days that people could find you at or connect with you or
Oh
help
yeah.
join the cause that you sort of represent? How do they get in contact with you or where can they do that?
You can find me on Twitter. I love to discuss any and all creative pursuits there. And one of the things I'll do is I'll strike up a good conversation with you about whatever the subject matter may be. And I love to ask these questions concerning new technologies and innovations. I care deeply about pushing things forward for businesses as well as the user experience in design. And I ask these questions all the time, like what is intentionally crafted about this product or about this service, and how does it make the users and the businesses and the professionals more productive? And I I know that perfection is highly valuable. We see it in a lot of things in the world, and we know it's good. Perfection is highly valuable, but it's also rather unknowable until you just see it, until you discover it. And so when you see that in the world, it's usually because it has a lot of depth to the created work. The people who were serving you, they poured their heart and soul into this and got it out the door, knowing it wasn't perfect to the artist. The designer is never through, but if it serves the world at large, then you've done your job as a creative professional. So you ask yourself when you're getting ready to finalize that product, that idea, what gives it depth? And is there any sophistication to it that it seems seamless and obvious and it just works? And the other thing is that we're human beings. So any good product ought to be able to serve us in another way. And that is, it ought to be kind of entertaining to use. It ought to be fun to use. It ought to be clever. It ought to be cool. And the more I think about it, even a good product that serves a very utilitarian purpose is made even better when it's entertaining to use. Like our phones are some of the most fascinating, innovative products today because they're cool. But you think about phones back in the 90s, you think about smartphones before Apple reinvented the smartphone in 2007, they weren't all that entertaining. So it is really exciting when people are engaged, and they're engaged because something was offering them fun along the way in the user experience. And if 2020, Bryant, taught us anything, it was, what is contentment? How can we be content with what we do have, even when times are tough? And how can we appreciate and be thankful for what we do have and make the best use of these things? We don't necessarily have every tool at our disposal. We can't necessarily go anywhere we would like to go, but we know that some of the most creative and useful things ever started when creative professionals had limited resources. And so 2020, it was a prime condition for innovation, even in concerning things in the medical industry.
All right. That is beautiful. So let's end it with the solo, right? I've got everything
Everything that I
need
need
right.
right in front of me
That
does it.
that's perfect. That's what I'm hearing, and everybody
Yeah.
love what we've done here. Love it like your relationships. Treat it like your business. Just make sure that, you plant seeds in the shade of trees and you don't sit in a few of those and you really encourage people with your victories and what I've really enjoyed our time here, Joseph, with finding beautiful questions and your community and the Bluprint community and everybody that's supporting each other there with the values of authenticity, of surrendering to the outcome, setting your goals, surrendering to achieving that goal through uncomfortable work, the third value, and that pushes anyone to learn. and you become
Yeah.
more authentic, and you can get better. And a shout out to Ben Holleran, a dear friend of both of us, and Tim Roberts for setting us up for this wonderful conversation. And Ben recently said something that I'd close on, is that if you imagine this, everyone, is you look to your left and there's bad, and you look to your right and there's bad, you have to assume each day you're sort of standing on good, and you're going to do the best you can today. And maybe tomorrow you'll yell at one less person. So set an achievable goal, set a series of achievable goals, set a big one, and then break it up into achievable sections, and make sure that you're achieving each one of those, and align yourself with people like what we feel is Aristotle's idea of virtuous spontaneity, where even when that person is out of control, they still act in a way that's virtuous, considered between both of you two. That's local.
Mm.
And then we could think about the world of the world's best, but who knows what that is? If you know what that is, please, in the audience, come. I will help you publish this book. And honestly, we might not want to publish it because they'd run out of trees to cut down to publish that book, right? So, and then we'd have no oxygen. So to actually, no, hold on. If you know what that is, please don't tell anyone, because that's everybody's wonderful adventure of finding out how they can serve that question, that field of research. And really, thank you, Joseph, for helping me make a few lives better. If this benefits anyone, that's amazing. Just go pay it forward. Just do whatever system works for you. So cheers, man.